Twitter. I forgot Twitter. You were at Twitter.
There's a bunch.
There's a bunch. All right, so let's start here. Every conversation about AI in Washington, D.C. is about the, quote, race with China. How do you most simply define what that race is?
Okay, simply put, the way me, David Sachs, the White House see this is we are in an existential race with China. And it is the American AI stack versus the Chinese AI stack. So to be very specific, it means our American AI chips, you heard from Dr. Lisa recently, or Jensen, our American models and our applications on top, versus Huawei and Cambridge versus the DeepSeek, Quen, and their models on top. And look, if there is a race, I see this as a business strategy. We need to have a metric for winning. And for me, the metric is market share for American AI. If there is a token inference around the world, I want it to be on an American chip using an American model. I wish I could get a big TV screen in my office which just shows me how many tokens are inference and how many of them are on our chips and our models.
Is there a percentage that you think means we are winning? It's obviously not going to be 100. So what's that inflection point?
Well, it's very hard to get an actual number right now for tokens, but right now we are dominating. And for me, I'm a student of tech history like you are. I think about Windows and Intel. A lot of people here in the 30s and 40s, if you look at the 90s, Windows and Intel was the dominant platform of software and hardware working together. So I want us to be the dominant platform when any token is inferenced all over the world.
When you think of this race with China, is this, for the United States, is this primarily an economic issue or a national security issue?
It's both, and they're highly linked. Because obviously, look, it's obvious to everybody here the economic impact of AI and the flywheel that happens when AI leads to productivity and it makes your companies and innovation better. But it also goes into national security because, as you can tell, these models and applications are at the heart of so much of defense tech and military applications, and they wind up influencing each other. There's also a national security issue if you have models from our adversaries running inside our country or our allies' countries, models which don't share our values. So for us, it's a combination.
Is there any, we talk the US, China with this, very binary. Is there any other country you see out there and think, yeah, they're the dark horse, but they could show up?
I think, look, the way I see it is there could be, but look, I think a lot of countries want to work with America. The conversations I've had with multiple heads of state, with multiple ambassadors is, look, we want to use your GPUs. We want to use NVIDIA. We want to use AMD. We want to use other companies. We want to use your model. So I think a lot of companies want to work with our companies. And one of the things that we have done over the last 8 months is to try and find ways to make it easier to do so.
Dario from Anthropic was up here, and he said he thought it was nuts that the United States allows chips, NVIDIA chips, for example, to be sold into China, albeit older models of them. You're obviously part of the White House that is allowing that, at least until today when China stopped it. What's the counter-argument to Dario?
Let me take a couple of minutes on this. So I think there were 3 mistaken beliefs that the Biden administration and a lot of these folks who don't want us to export chips believe. Number one is they thought America has a chip shortage, that's a supply constraint. Second, they believe China can't manufacture chips. Third, they believe that China can't do open source models or models at large. Fourth, they believe that America is on a path to building AGI or ASI, AI models can kill us all, so we need to retain those abilities. Working backwards, I would say that we are nowhere on the path of, Terminator or self-improving AI, regardless of what Eliezer Yudkowsky says. Number two, if you see the news today, it is very clear that China has chip capability, and in fact, they're trying to stop our American companies from selling chips to China. So they are building out their Chinese AI stack. Third is, there is no supply constraint. Like if you heard like Dr. Lisa, or if you talk to Jensen, on their earnings or other places, they will tell you that, we have all the GPUs that we need for American companies. And so, and of course, when it comes to Chinese models, my first day on the job, DeepSeek comes out, and we are in a heated race. So all this leads us now to believe the way to compete with Huawei and Cambridge, the way to make sure we don't have a repeat of what happened with 5G is to make sure we give China these older GPUs in limited quantities. America has the latest and greatest in enough quantities to build these superclusters, but by giving them these older GPUs in limited quantities, we make sure that Huawei and DeepSeek don't have a flywheel that's in growth.
I mean, did Beijing call that bluff today, though, by the reports that they are no longer allowing NVIDIA chips to be sold to their big tech companies?
Well, I think the way they see it is it sort of affirms what Sachs and I have been saying, which is like they have enough chips. They want their stack to win. There have been news reports of Huawei trying to export GPUs to other countries. So I see this as in a way of them doing an AI Belt and Road initiative, and it is on us to make sure when it's our allies or it's the world over, they are using our stuff and not their stuff.
It's interesting. I mean, if Beijing kind of agrees with your point of view on this, which is why they're doing that, as you say, does that give you kind of concern because they are indeed going to be keep plugging more research? You know, Huawei is going to be able to sell to their companies. They get more money. They get to build better chips. In other words, is what China did today, not allowing U.S. chips in, is that actually bad for the United States in this race?
Well, I think if our companies can't get developers and applications, if there is not GitHub repos which are writing code on American chips, that's obviously bad for us. But I think, I want to go back to some of the people who are opposed to us exporting GPUs of any kind. I always ask them, what does Huawei want us to do? Right? Like they probably want us to not ship them AMD, not ship them NVIDIA. If people are advocating the same policies that Huawei wants us to do, I probably have some questions about that.
So if one of the goals of you and Sachs and the administration is to build up the, as you say, the US AI industry, the stack, et cetera, how does it help US chip makers to have to pay a cut to the US government when they're exporting to China?
Well, the way we see it is, look, first, there's been kind of a lot of this fake news about what has happened. Number one is
what's happened?
Right. So the Biden administration never actually export controlled the H20s or the MI380s from AMD. We brought this under a licensing regime, we being the Department of Commerce, where we said we want to know exactly where the chips are going and in what quantity.
And when you sell them, we get a slice off the top.
And I think that I saw the Secretary of Commerce talk about this the other day. Look, the president does what he does best, which is like, look, we are letting you do this. Let's make sure the.
How does that help the industry? If the industry, like in theory, take your Huawei example. Right? The reason you don't want Huawei to be able to sell as much because then it becomes a virtuous cycle for them, right? They get more money to develop. If NVIDIA could get that more money to develop, that would be good for NVIDIA. That would be good for the US industry. But they can't because they're giving some of it to the IRS.
Well, I think the first part of it is like the fact that they can do this, not just in China, but also we just struck these Middle East deals, helps us push our tech separately. But to your point, I think the way I see it is the president got the American people a great deal.
Got the American people. All right, we'll move on. There's an EO that I think you were part of. It's called Preventing Woke EO. Let's talk AI rather. Let's talk a little bit about regulation here in the limited time we have left. You've said that this is really about making sure there is not ideology of any sort inside AI models. But that's not what the EO says. The EO's title is Preventing Woke AI. It talks about DEI, et cetera. It doesn't talk about MAGA ideology. It doesn't talk about libertarian ideology. It's specific. So how is that EO not in its own right imposing an ideology?
It's a great question. So, by the way, I highly suggest everybody here read the text of the EO. It's highly riveting. I'm a bit biased. I wrote a little bit of it myself. What it says is that, first, it has a few examples of the kinds of ideology we don't want to see. Black George Washington. You ask a model for Nazis, you get Asian people. Black Pope.
It also says you shouldn't have anything in there that talks about discrimination on the basis of race or sex. So if an AI includes information that acknowledges that women make less than men for the same job, that is somehow woke ideology?
Well, what it says is you need to be truth-seeking, right? There are two principles.
But that would be truth.
Well,
nothing about discrimination on the basis of race or sex.
No, what it says is if you need to be truth-seeking and objective, and second is if you have ideological sources, just tell us what they are. Look, it's very simple. What we want is you don't put your thumb on the scale. We don't want either left or right ideology. We just want any thumbs on scale. And if you think that you have views of the world in there, that's perfectly fine. But the model needs to be transparent about what those views are.
How will I know the EO gave 120 days, and we're not close to that yet. How will you determine whether there is ideology inside these models?
Well, I think OMB and a bunch of agencies are working on the process to go do that, which actually is another interesting point here, because at the heart of this, what do we want? These are about taxpayer money, right? This is taxpayer money being spent in these models. And we are saying, listen, like you're free to do whatever you want, but if you want the American taxpayer to buy your model through the USG, through the DoD, A, we don't want any ideology, or B, if you have biases, just tell us what they are. So, but there is a process right now to figure out what the evaluations and what the, how the evaluations will happen.
There's a bunch of talk about AI regulation at the state level. California particularly seems to be moving ahead. There was talk about putting a moratorium in the big beautiful bill. It got stripped out. There was opposition kind of on both sides of that. I know the White House kind of wants to get that moratorium back in some way. In the meantime, if California passes AI regulation or other states do, what is your office's response to that? How do you guys handle that? What's the contingency plan?
Well, we'll have to see, when that winds up happening. Our thinking is very clear. The president came out and said this at the AI summit maybe a month and a half ago, saying, look, AI is a national security issue, right? Like if you're competing with DeepSeek and Quen, we don't want every AI company to build out a huge compliance department. Trust me, no CEO here wants to build out a huge compliance department, which has to figure out, hey, what is California saying? What is New York saying, right? And I think there are over like 1,000 state laws in the works. Just imagine, the kind of the drag and the inefficiencies there. So I think our view is simple. I think you have Senator Cruz right after this, who's probably another good person to talk to. Our view is simple. This is a national security issue. If we're going to win against China, we need to think about this at the federal level. But we got to take it as it comes, and we'll see what happens when one of these laws pass.
That's interesting. Two final quick questions for you here. One, when it comes to the U.S. leading in AI, actually, let me ask it this way. Different question. You come from Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley's always kind of had traditionally a kind of hard time getting into D.C. except for Google during the Obama administration. Is Sand Hill Road the new K Street?
Wait, what's K Street?
It's where all the lobbyists are. It's one
I genuinely did not know that.
Okay, but from your perspective, let me ask it this way. Do you feel, does Silicon Valley have an appropriate influence in the White House or in DC right now, or too much?
Well, look, I don't see it that way at all. I think, this administration, look, somebody like me had no political aspirations. I never badly even made a trip to DC. I was personally convinced that the country was going on the wrong path on AI regulation. What the previous team was doing was just terrible, and I got motivated. And I think, what this president has done has brought together people from the industry who are just motivated to come serve. So it's me, David Sachs, there's also other people. Look at Emil Michael in the DoD, Joe Gebbia, founder of Airbnb, a billionaire, but he's up here trying to redesign, I think, everybody's tax forms and veterans benefits and whatnot. So I think it's a testament to the president's ability to pull in talent.
Final question is about the president himself. To your knowledge, does he use any AI, and if so, what?
I don't know the answer to that, but I'm sure Barron does. So, but you know what? I should go find out. I don't know the answer to that. Look, I want to leave you with like one final thought. There's a great quote from Steve Jobs I came across the other day. It's on my X profile, where Jobs he's 38, he's out of the mix, and he's kind of trying to shape his comeback. And he says, listen, I don't really think about technology. Technology is useless. What I think about is people, and I believe in people. And for me, a lot of my, the way I think about AI is like, I believe in the people using AI, be it American workers, be it everybody here, and that's kind of the heart of what we're trying to do.
Sriram, thanks so much.
Thank you.